Hi, friend, and welcome back to the Like Us pod. I am your host, Erin Jones-Wesley, through these bonus episode play-by-plays of The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. All season long, we were asking the question, are the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills like us? We found out at the finale that Rachel Zoe was indeed like us, but throughout the course of the reunion, we were just kind of watching the show, kicking back and seeing what we learned, right? I feel like a lot of what we saw this past season with The Real Housewives of Beverly Hills was really interesting because Rachel Zoe, obviously our relatability queen, what we saw in the reunion was her continuously being relatable, right? I also feel like, the last reunion aired tonight and it was something to really see how much of a breakdown exists between Dorit, Kyle, and Erika. And I know some people are absolutely tired of the feud between Dorit and Kyle, but I have to say, and maybe it's just because this was my first season doing a Bravo recap, I think I'm going to miss Beverly Hills. Like, I'm a little sad about it. I know that before I did these recaps, I used to always joke to myself that, like, Real Housewives of Beverly Hills was my favorite spring sport. I always look forward to it every year. And so it's kind of a bummer when people are online and talking so negatively about a show that some of us really like and enjoy. And throughout the season and really throughout the reunion, I've been trying to unpack why it is that some people have such a visceral reaction to Beverly Hills, even though it is the most popular show. And I feel like the thing about Beverly Hills is we do get a real story arc. And there's something I really enjoy about that. And then I promise I'll get into the reunion recap, but I just want to reflect that with Beverly Hills, unlike other Housewives series, it's not about jamming in as much drama into each episode as possible. I feel like we actually get to be emotionally invested in these women because the way that we get to see them play out their own character arc over seasons of the show, we really do get to know them a little bit more and feel emotionally invested. As much as I know that some people think Dorit is annoying, I personally feel very invested in hearing about what Dorit does next and how she gets herself out of the hole. I don't know if you guys saw, but there was a reporting in one of the blogs that PK was trying to get a court to let them sell the house because he was saying that Dorit spent millions of dollars when the house was foreclosed. Not good, right? But I want to see if Dorit gets out of it. I want to see if she sells the books and starts a business and gets away from PK. She says in a live stream earlier this week that she was engaged 2 times before PK. And I find that to be really interesting. I'm going to keep following. I'm probably going to read Dorit's book. So find me on socials to follow along with that. I don't know. I feel like because we've gotten so much time to get to know these ladies, it really isn't about how much drama can fill in an episode. And it really is about trying to figure out if they resolve their problems, right? Like, I feel like even with Erika, obviously what happened with Tom, and then it was the earrings, and then it was her trying to get back on her feet. And what a saga, right? We have seen that woman go through genuinely so much. And I feel like part of watching Erika's journey unfold did include her finally being someone that could create friendships. I feel like when Erika was first on the show, she didn't really have a lot of friends. And obviously, her and Dorit, they started off on the wrong foot, but it was kind of nice to see them create this friendship. And even in Lisa Rinna's book, she talks about the fact that there was a real, genuine friendship between Lisa Rinna, Dorit, Erika, Kyle. Like, that was true and real. And now to see that all has gone away it's sad. When I watched this last episode of this finale of the reunion, the part 3, I did feel a little bummed that it felt like Erika and Dorit were not going to come to terms. And then you hear in all of the interviews after the reunion that they didn't feel like they would. And after seeing part 3, I kind of understand why not. But I feel like that's kind of what makes the reunions such a behemoth for the ladies is that it is a really long day. They are on set for 12, 13 hours. And, I think that when you're on set for that long and you get tired, you get cranky, and you're talking about things that are really heightened emotions, you can tell that they're just emotionally depleted. And I felt like Dorit and Erika went really, really low with each other in a way that's not typical housewives low. I think that usually when you think of a housewife going low, you think of them, talking about the bad things in their life. But what Erika and Dorit have done to each other is so emotional And so it cut so deep. I don't know if I hope they make up, but I could see them both just walking away from the friendship. Now, a lot of people think that Dorit got fired. She said on her live that she hasn't heard that she's been fired and she hasn't heard that she doesn't have a job. So she's assuming she still is a housewife. I feel like they don't really look at contracts again, though, until, a little bit later. So we'll find out. I hope Dorit returns. I honestly hope Kyle returns. My hot take is that none of them should get replaced. I think for next season of Housewives, we should bring everybody back. I've said this before, but I think we bring everyone back. And then I think we just add more housewives. It's clear that Amanda Francis does not want to come back. That was the big news that dropped since my last episode, is that she commented on a post where she said, why would I want to do that when someone says that Amanda has to come back? So maybe she doesn't. Maybe she doesn't return. That's fine. Amanda is fine, but if she doesn't return, that's all good. Now, enough of the blabbing. We're really deep in the episode now, and I think that we should get into actually the reunion recap and not just my reflections of the season. But I did just want to reflect a little bit on Erika and Dorit because it is top of mind. I just watched the show and I feel bad for that friendship not taking off. Now we start actually the reunion with Erika and Dorit. And Erika does force Dorit to apologize. And she says, it really hurt me when you said that I was only coming after you to protect my job. That was sensitive for Erika because she feels like, why are you saying that on camera? Why are you saying that in a way to jeopardize my payment, my paycheck, right? I think that Erika Jayne doesn't really want to be on Housewives anymore. In Lisa Rinna's book, she says that there's a housewife who wants to leave but feels like they can't because they'll be broke. And I feel like that housewife is Erika Jayne, who I love, but I do feel like that's just the truth of it. And so maybe Dorit knew that information and maybe that was something painful to say. Dorit says that she didn't realize that hurt Erika so much and that she wished that Erika would have told her that sooner. Apparently, it was a really big deal for Erika to bring that up in the reunion. It was a thing that she didn't want to bring up, to the point where she told Andy, I don't want to bring up that Dorit said this on camera. And Dorit forced Erika's hand to say it on camera. And so they did. And Dorit does eventually apologize. She says that she got really hurt by Erika when Erika was going through a hard time. And Erika had said that no one in the group had her back when Dorit felt like she had her back. So, I think they've both hurt each other in the past. I think they're also both very sensitive because I think both of these things could have easily rolled off their backs and it did not. But here we are. So Erika forces Dorit to apologize, and Dorit does apologize, but she also has a caveat because she's Dorit. And she says, of course I'm sorry, and then kind of gives a lot of excuses about why she did the behavior that she did. And I think that what Dorit needs to learn to do is she needs to just say, I'm sorry, no but. My bad. I didn't mean to. And that needs to be enough. That needs to be enough. Kyle jumps in. And when Kyle jumps in, she kind of gets into, well, Dorit, you did this, and why would I say that? And the thing with Kyle is she has not let Dorit really speak the whole time. And as much as everyone likes to say, well, Dorit talks too much, so she'll never finish her point. She is loquacious. She owns that herself. But I also think that she never really gets to finish her point, everyone derails her, and that's kind of annoying. But either way, we get starting to talk about Italy because all of the thing that happened with Erika and Dorit happened at the table in Italy, and now there's more of a conversation there. The thing that starts this is kind of the chaos with Sutton. And so we get information that originally Sutton was not supposed to be rooming with Amanda. Amanda was supposed to room with Natalie. Where did Natalie go? We don't know. She didn't even make it to the reunion. So Sutton says, Jennifer Tilly shouldn't be sharing a room. That's insane. I will share a room so that Jennifer Tilly doesn't have to. Also, we have sisters on the trip. Why aren't the sisters sharing a room? And that was out of the question because Kyle and Kathy would never share a room, which was kind of Sutton's point. Sutton decides then, because no one wanted to room with Amanda, that she would be the person to room with Amanda. And what's so funny is she goes, Amanda, take this all with a grain of salt. And Amanda's so sulky. She goes, I'll try. I'll try. For someone who manifests so much, she's always throwing a pity party for herself. She needs to stop manifesting those pity parties. So when Sutton chooses to room with Amanda, she makes it more of a thing. And in the conversation about Sutton and Dorit's beef, Sutton brings up that Dorit called her a social climber on Watch What Happens Live. And Dorit says, I did call you a social climber on Watch What Happens Live, but why is that a bad thing? And I think you are a social climber. And Kathy Hilton says, well, why don't you explain what the word socialite means? Which was like, oops, shade. But I think that, Dorit says she's not in these social climbing circles. She's not a socialite. She doesn't understand that. And I actually believe Dorit for that because, on her Instagram story, she posts that her kid's at like the baseball game. And I don't think you're at the baseball game if you're a socialite. I don't think socialites are showing up to the baseball game every single week. They're not showing up to the kids' events. They're just not. They're busy. They're doing things. If anything, sometimes the kids are going with the parents that are the socialites, peak Blue Ivy at the Met Gala. That's all I'm saying. And so Dorit says, I'm not in that circle. I don't know what's going on with that. And Sutton then says, well, it really hurt my feelings that you said this. But the thing is it's like, it's not very hard to hurt Sutton's feelings. If we're being honest, her feelings are kind of always hurt. And so then Dorit says, okay, well, I'm sorry that I said you were a social climber, Sutton. And Sutton goes, really? And Dorit says, I can't believe you believe that apology. And people made a big deal online about Dorit apologizing and taking it back. But the thing is I think had Sutton heard and appreciated that Dorit really did apologize, I don't think Dorit would have taken the apology back. I think because she apologized to Sutton and Sutton responded kind of like, oh, really? I think that's why Dorit was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm not apologizing anymore. And I think that that's something that needs to be shown is how much Dorit does apologize and how little anyone thinks she means it. And maybe she doesn't mean it, but she does apologize and she does say sorry, but everyone just pretends like she doesn't. We then move into Bose and Keeley. And we show a really sweet package of Bose and Keeley together. And then we get into the conversation of Bose and Keeley and their children or the children that they want to have. And Bose says that the plan is that they're going to do another egg retrieval. They'll use donor eggs. They'll use whatever it takes to try to have a baby. And if none of those things work, then they will adopt. But they are going to be together and they will figure out how to have kids in their life with each other for Keeley to be a dad and for Bose to be the mom and for them to move forward as a couple, which is very sweet. It's also bananas that Bose is doing so much IVF at her age. She's like 50. It's wild. I mean, I know that Janet Jackson had a baby in her 50s and if you're biblical, was it with Sarah in the Bible? In the Bible days, they say that people were having kids in the 60s and 70s. But let's be real. It's tough out there. And I appreciate Bose's love of Keeley to the point where she wants to try to have babies for him. But I hope that they get to a place where they are happy and have their peace and the children and the family that they want. What gets brought up is someone asks a shady question, someone from the audience, and they say, what if Keeley lost his job? Why did he ask Bose that? The writing's on the wall. These men are always telling on themselves. I don't think that Keeley wants to lose his job. I think that Bose is a very independent woman, and I think that Keeley sees that. And I think he thinks, well, if I have to rely on her, will she still love me? And Kyle in her post-show, in the after show, says, well, if he lost his penis, would you still love him? And Bose makes a really valid point where she says, for a lot of men, their money is that. Their money is their member. And Kathy Hilton says, no money, no honey. Then we move into Bose and Amanda. We continue with the beef, even though we did get a preview of that in the first episode of the reunion. Now we're playing it back where Andy asks Bose about why he said Amanda was a scammer. And Bose just says, look, I had enough. Amanda kept comparing us and we are not the same. I don't want to be compared to Amanda. Amanda kept making comparisons and then being really snarky and mean about the comparisons. And Amanda's like, no, I wasn't. But then what we hear is everything Amanda tried to say that Bose said, she never said those things. It was Amanda hearing what she wanted to hear. And isn't that a word? Sometimes when we're in contention with people, it is that they just hear what they want to hear. It's not that they're hearing what's actually said. And sometimes you do need to hear to listen and listen to understand. And sometimes that doesn't happen. And it feels like that's what's happening with Bose and Amanda. Then it gets brought up that they have something that should be bonding them, which is the fact that they both are mothers who have lost children in the past. And it doesn't connect them at all because Bose doesn't feel like the way that Amanda handled it is the way that she would have handled it. Amanda realizes that maybe she should have said something showing up to work that day instead of keeping it a secret and not telling anyone. Again, to the point that I made, that Rachel Zoe made at part 2 of the reunion, is that part of the issue is that Amanda was being nasty about the book. It had very little to do about the PK thing. It had everything to do with Amanda being nasty about having ghostwriters and writing a book. No one brings that up again for the second time. Everyone just lets it lie. Amanda and Bose don't really make amends, but they also don't make any drama and they just move on, right? There's no yelling. There's nothing crazy. They don't curse at each other. They just move forward. And now we're back to Italy again. which then we get to the deeper issue. And it cuts deeper than what just happened at the table because it's very clear that there's a really deep friendship divide. And we go into Kyle and Bose and how the friendship divide between Dorit and Kyle, Bose has played a part in it. Now, I feel like Bose has been a little bit messy. And in her messiness, she's actually gotten away with how messy she's been. But the messiness really has to do with Kyle and Bose having conversations, Bose bringing it up to Dorit, but then Bose also bringing up her own issues with Dorit separately, and Kyle never doing that. And if Kyle had done that, she would have a leg to stand on, but she doesn't. Bose also mentions that she's had Kyle's back every single time, and they play the tapes, and it's true. Again, with Kyle and Amanda listening, but not hearing. Hearing only what they want to hear, not what actually happened. Kyle, in Kyle's brain, she says, Bose has never had my back. And they play clip after clip after clip of Bose being like, I think Kyle has your back, Dorit. I think Kyle has your best interest in mind, Dorit. And I wonder what happened. I know what happened, but I'm going to pose the question to you, audience. Why do you think Kyle couldn't see that Bose had her back? Why do you think Kyle could only see Bose as being in contention with her and not being on her side? Why do you think that happened? Just going to ask the question. You can leave a comment because I have a feeling, and I think that's it. I'm not going to get ahead of myself. I just have a feeling. That's all I'm going to say. Bose and Kyle say that they want to have a friendship outside of Dorit, and Kyle thinks that they can't have a friendship because of Dorit. We'll see. We'll see if they go work out. Bose says she invited Kyle to a workout so that they could work out together. Did Kyle go to the workout? We don't know. We'll find out, right? We'll see. We end up getting into Dorit kind of handling everybody and telling them all about themselves for a second. The thing is Kyle's being willfully obtuse. She says, I don't understand why you're so mad at me, Dorit. And Dorit continues to repeat, because you talked about me behind my back to everyone on the cast. And Kyle doesn't see it. She thinks it didn't happen. She thinks everyone was talking about Dorit behind her back, but she's not seeing that she created those conversations. And I don't know if she doesn't see it because she doesn't want to see it or if she doesn't want it to admit to that. It then gets into people saying that Kyle has the ability to hire and fire people on the show. And Kyle says, well, that's ridiculous because I would obviously get rid of people if I had that power. And Bo says, I wouldn't be here if Kyle had that power. And then Kathy makes a joke that Kyle Richards runs Bravo. And I think that that's really funny. I think that the way that the cast is set up is really good. I think that Kyle could look to be a friend of for the next season if anything changed. But again, like I said, I think invite everyone back and just add more cast members and make them duke it out. Kyle says she does not have any say in who gets hired or fired, but Amanda brings up the astute point that everyone online calls Kyle Richards the producer. Yeah, she's story savvy. She's produced something before. That's all we're saying. Andy Cohen brings up the fact that everyone said that Lisa Vanderpump did that. And Lisa Vanderpump did do that. What are we talking about? Why are we pretending like that wasn't true? That was also true. Lisa Vanderpump literally found the person that was sleeping with Brandi Glanville's ex-husband, brought that person onto the show, and then created a spinoff show based off that. You mean to tell me that woman wasn't producing? Stop it. What are we talking about? We're just making stuff up at this point. We get one final say of everyone kind of giving their final words of the episode. And it doesn't really seem like there was a lot of big resolutions. Amanda kind of seemed a little cold by the end of it, really tired, not really into it. I think that Sutton enjoys being on the show. I think Jennifer Tilly and Kathy Hilton love being friends of. I think Erika seemed really raw and emotional. I think Dorit seemed honestly a little chaotic. And I feel bad for her because I think she is going through a lot, obviously, because she keeps saying it. But I also think she's going through more than anyone even knows, you know? Andy asks everyone what they're manifesting. Everyone says they're basically manifesting good things, except Jennifer Tilly says she's manifesting winning the World Poker Tournament. I hope she wins too. They toast a matcha that has some alcohol in it. I can't help but notice that Amanda's like, oh my God, my impact, because they do a matcha toast and then they ask what everyone's manifesting. And I feel like they were conflating her ego a little too much, honestly. They could have took it down a peg. They could have taken it down a peg. But here we are. You know, Amanda can feel good about herself. And that's really the end of Beverly Hills. Like I said, I'm going to miss talking about this show with you all. It was so fun. But I'm still talking Housewives. I'm doing recaps of the Real Housewives of Rhode Island and the Real Housewives of Atlanta. They're in the same episode together. And I'm keeping score. We're going to see if they are more relatable than the Beverly Hills ladies, if they're less relatable, and which Real Housewife of Rhode Island and Atlanta are the most relatable, which is the most like us. It's been fun to go on this journey with you. Please stay tuned to what's happening next, and also stay tuned for the Like Us pod. We have pop culture, news, film, TV, all good stuff coming out every single week. Chat with you all soon. Follow at Like Us Pod and at Aaron Jones-Wesley. Bye.